Sunny 97, I'm gonna jump, so you better hold me, hold me.
Hello and welcome to the penultimate episode of Comics News and Previews. Tonight, an important announcement about our future. But first, the news.
Okay, I'm going to be starting the news. In the June issue of the Advance Comics, it will contain a 16-page preview from Dark Horse called Comics Greatest World Bible. It's going to be a guide to the new shared universe that's coming from Dark Horse, and it will be giving us early insight into this shared universe. As well, X, who is a character from this new shared universe, will be in Dark Horse Comics number 8.
Okay, and speaking of Advance Comics, it says that March is manga month, so there will be many manga titles, Japanese comics, as well as other Japanese products such as videos and books available in March, so be sure to check your comic stores for many of these fine products. And also, in May, look for 2 interesting new releases. Captain Harlock, the Machine People from Eternity. We'll follow up the last Captain Harlock limited series as Captain Harlock must investigate the mysterious beings who saved Earth from the Illumidas Empire. And Dirty Pair Sim Hell from Dark Horse, written and drawn by Adam Warren, will feature the famous 3WA Trouble consultants causing a whole lot of collateral damage. But remember, it's not their fault.
Yeah, right. Okay, starting in May as well, with X Factor number 92, the X-Men's 30th anniversary will begin. This will be running through 6 of the X-Men titles. Each title will have a hologram that will be much like the Spider-Man holograms last year, but they're supposed to be much better. This basic storyline will have to do with the Acolytes and will also feature the return of Magneto, so look for those.
Okay, and we have an update on the Fantastic Four movie that you've been waiting for. The filming is said to be completed at this point. The final budget is higher than the original $4.2 or $3 million, somewhere under $6 million. The cast consists mostly of unknowns, but an advanced look at the script says that there'll be Dr. Vincent, not Victor Von Doom, and a mole man-like character known as the Jeweler as the main villains. There will be costumes and a somewhat elaborate Thing suit along the lines of the Flash and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles costumes. This is said to be the biggest production Roger Corman has ever attempted. Of course, that's not saying a whole lot.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, DC has begun tapping into the horror market with the writers bringing Nancy Collins on Swamp Thing, and now they're finally bringing Joe Lansdale into the business. He's one of the best horror writers on the market, and he will be doing 2 different series for DC's Vertigo line. The first one he'll be writing these, the Jonah Hex Two Gun Mojo, which will be a 5-issue series coming out in June, and it will have art by Tim Truman. Then finally, he'll also be doing a 4-issue prestige format series called Blood and Shadows. So look for those, and look for us to do previews on it at a later time.
Okay, and Topps Comics is continuing their line of big-name movie adaptations. Spielberg's Dinosaurs Eat Disneyland film Jurassic Park will be adapted by Walter Simonson, and Silver Age artist Gil Kane will be penciling for inker George Perez. So watch for that coming sometime around June, hopefully. And now it's time for our first San Diego Comic-Con update. The San Diego Comic-Con is, in general, the biggest comic book convention in the country. It'll be held in San Diego from August 19th through the 22nd. and we feel that it's really worth attending, and hopefully we will be there to get more interviews.
Definitely. At this point, some of the guests that have been announced are Murphy Anderson, who's known for his Silver Age Hawkman work, Jack Kirby, Mark Silvestri, Charles Vess, and Jerry Bingham, who has done Batman work in the past. It's a great place to meet the people that you've admired who do the work. It's a place to pick up bargains if there's things you can't find here, and it's just a lot of fun to go. It's actually a lot of fun for a lot of different reasons. So definitely, if you're able to monetarily or whatever, it's something to go to and check out.
Yes, comic stores around the world will be there. If you can't find it there, it's not worth looking for. And now let's start with the previews. Vince?
Which I'll start. We're looking first at Dino Island, which is a 2-issue miniseries put out by Mirage Publishing. This is written and penciled by Jim Lawson, who's also doing work on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it tells the story of a woman pilot who is flying through the Bermuda Triangle. She sees a bright flash of light, and then she blacks out. She wakes up and finds that she's heading towards an island that wasn't or should not be there. She makes an emergency landing, and then she finds that the island is populated by dinosaurs. Eventually, as she walks around, she finds other humans on the island that have come to make the island their home. And as far as I think, the story was really actually very interesting. I liked it a lot, although with only 2 issues, I don't know how much they're going to be able to do with it. It didn't cram a whole lot into 1 issue. So I don't know how complete it's going to be after 2 issues only. And then I thought the art was kind of simple, which could be an advantage or a disadvantage. I don't really know. But overall, I thought it was actually very good, and hopefully they could possibly extend it, because it does have so much more potential than only 2 issues.
Yeah, I found that this idea of the lost world with the dinosaurs in the jungle or on an island has been done a whole lot before in Pulp Fiction, but it's still an idea that has some mileage in it, so I enjoyed the writing. I felt that, yes, Jim Lawson has done some better art-wise, but it was worth picking up.
I agree.
I'd look for it. You might have to go through a little trouble, but yes, it's definitely worth checking out.
Right.
And up next, Silver Sable by Stephen Butler, Greg Wright, and it's from Marvel. And relentlessly trained in many types of combat, Silver Sable is the owner-operator of the Wild Pack, a highly elite Special Forces mercenary unit. It was originally created by Silver Sable's father to hunt down Nazi war criminals. But since there's not as much market for that anymore, Silver has made it an organization dealing with super beings and other difficult problems. Though a lot of the book does deal with Silver Sable and her ruthless and intense personality, it is an ensemble book with Silver Sable's Wild Pack each getting to shine in their own way. And many of these people are not heroic in nature. There's the sadistic Crippler, for instance, who enjoys inflicting pain, and they're really exploring this crew and why they work with her. And the Paladin has been known to guest star from time to time. And so I feel that Butler's a good artist. This isn't as good as he's done in certain books for First Comics, but I find it's quite a good read, so check it out for lots of gun-toting action.
I guess. I picked this up, the first issue I picked up, mainly because
It had a foil embossed cover?
No, because I knew Stephen Butler was going to do it. He did some great work on Badger, and while it was okay in this book, something was missing. It didn't seem to be up to par to what he was doing in Badger. As well, I thought the story was kind of boring. Wasn't it, when it initially started, wasn't it supposed to be something of a rotating cast of mercenaries or something like that? And to a degree it has been, but then they've also created brand new characters to be in here when they have a whole array of other characters to pull from, which I thought was kind of disappointing. I mean, the only ones that have been established are, what, Paladin, Battlestar, maybe Sandman, that's it. I mean, one or two others maybe.
Crippler.
He's been around, yes. I don't know, maybe it's the whole vigilante or the mercenary type thing, which could be interesting, but I didn't find it interesting in this one. So, that's just me. I just didn't find it that interesting. So, for me, I wouldn't look at it. But David does.
Well, there's no accounting for taste.
The next one we're going to look at is the Doom Patrol, which is recently written by Grant Morrison, now by Rachel Pollack, with art by Richard Case. It's probably the weirdest of all the Vertigo titles. This has got to be one of the unluckiest teams in the DC universe. Each member has had a really traumatic life. Cliff Steele was once a human who was a race car driver, and he crashed his car. He was built a robot body with his human brain still intact. They also have Crazy Jane, a woman with 67 separate personalities, and each of those personalities has a power. They also have Rebus, which is a composite being of 2 humans and a negative energy creature, Joshua Clay and Dorothy Spinner. Recently, they've gone through a total breakdown of the team when it was revealed that the chief, their mentor, had actually done all these things to the different people to create the Doom Patrol in the first place. Again, like I said, it's definitely a weird book. Some of the stories are interesting. It got kind of maybe convoluted for a while, but it did do some different things that were actually pretty enjoyable. Art-wise, it was okay by Richard Casey. I've seen him do better stuff, but it does lend its own flavor to the book. So it's something to try to see if you like it at least.
A caveat: everything you know about Doom Patrol might be wrong, as Grant Morrison just left, and an unknown person, a non-comic person, is now working on it. I'd have to disagree that this is the weirdest Vertigo title. There did seem to be some sense of plot and linear logic. You could follow the action. It was not incoherent for the sake of being incoherent like Shade was. While there were bizarre situations, you could follow them. You could understand what was going on.
Well, Grant definitely did create some weird characters for that, though.
Yeah, but he also used some continuity. Dr. Magnus, Will Magnus.
True, and that was one of the better things, because you can tell Grant likes to do that. He did it in Animal Man, and he did it here.
Yeah, so I'd say that this is not as bad as other Vertigo titles, but I've heard from some Doom Patrol fans who are not satisfied with the current writer, who say she's just retreading familiar ground.
Okay.
So only time will tell. Up next, Legionnaires by Tom and Mary Bierbaum with art by Chris Sprouse. It's a spin-off of the Legion of Superheroes. The alien dominators, it turns out, made clones of the Legion of Superheroes back when they were teenagers. These clones were kept on ice for years until they were accidentally freed in the war against Dominion oppression of Earth. The Legionnaires have awoken to find a world a lot grimmer than the one that they were frozen in. They were instrumental in kicking the Dominators off the Earth, but shortly thereafter the entire Earth was destroyed. Now the young Legionnaires are the protectors and inspiration for New Earth, a colony made up out of the few domed cities that escaped Earth's destruction. If you didn't like the changes in Legion of Superheroes that we saw about 3 or 4 years ago, you'll probably like this. It has a return to the youthful exuberance and the code names of the original Legion of Superheroes book. And it's got a fresh spirit and simple, effective art, so I'd highly recommend that you pick it up. It's also polybagged with a trading card, so you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty good. I like Chris Sprouse's art. And at least with Tom and Mary Bierbaum, you have writers who know the team, know the continuity, because they've been longtime readers.
But the continuity is not so important as
not at this point, no.
Yeah, if you've never seen a Legion book before, you'll be able to pick this up.
That's true. It was an interesting story. I know that I've read what they're going to be doing with future issues, and it sounds intriguing. I know they're going to be having a love triangle between, I'm not sure which members.
Cosmic Boy, Lightning Lad, Saturn Girl.
Those members. But I think from the first issue, from what I've seen from the earlier or the later issues, I think it'll be an all right title, and it won't be so confusing as the Legion was, which is almost impossible to jump in at this point. So yeah, definitely look for it. You can get in almost on a ground floor at this point.
Oh, and I meant Livewire, not Lightning Lad. There's new code names for a new era.
Okay, the last title I'll be looking at is called Bone, which is the creation of Jeff Smith. This tells us the story of 3 characters, Smiley Bone, Phony Bone, and Phone Bone, who were exiled from Boneville because of a scam done by Phony Bone. They come across a valley that has humans, talking dragons, talking insects, and certain rat creatures who are hunting Phony Bone for some unknown reason at this point. It has really simple art. It's almost I think it's a 6-panel layout or a 9-panel layout, but it's actually very good. This was recommended to me by an employee at one of the local comic shops, and this is not usually one of the books that I would do. That's usually David's forte, but actually I really did like it a lot. The story was very entertaining, some great humor, and the characters were all very enjoyable. So I guess if anybody can believe I'm recommending, I would say definitely check this book out.
I can't believe you're recommending this.
It's true.
Yeah, the story started in the middle of things, but there have been no previous works.
Right.
So don't be put off by the fact that the first issue starts in the middle of some action.
Yeah.
I did find this to be a simple and enjoyable and just plain entertaining book with a lot of really clean artwork.
We should probably mention that going through the letters pages, a lot of people have written in. Will Eisner,
animation people,
right?
too.
And even Will Eisner has backed it. Charles Vess, Chuck Dixon, who works at Marvel. There's been a lot of people who actually had some high praise in the letters. I don't know. With 7 issues, it's been out for 7 issues now, and it really is a good book.
Yeah. So for something different than muscle-powered spandex, not that there's anything wrong with that, I'd say check it out.
Right.
But in return to spandex, we come to Nexus: Alien Justice by Mike Baron and Steve Rude from Dark Horse. Horatio Hillpop, a thoughtful scholar, is given unwanted, unlimited fusion power by the insane alien known as the Merc. With this power, Hillpop becomes Nexus, the galaxy's most feared assassin. Nexus dreams of mass murderers, and when he wakes is compelled to find and execute them, the first of whom was his father. He'd stop if he could, but he cannot. Too many people, victims of Nexus's targets, are now refugees under his protection. Recently, the increasingly insane Merc has withdrawn Nexus's fusion power and given it to an alien, so that alien's race might benefit from the Merc's attention. The Merc wishes to weed out the bad parts of a particular species as a lesson to everyone else. This has happened before, and the power tends to corrupt whoever else the fusion power is given to, and now Nexus and his friend Judah the Hammer must stop this new Nexus before he goes on a rampage. Nexus is quite an interesting book. It's thought-provoking, and it's got simple lines and quite dynamic art. It was inspired by Space Ghost and other 60s-type cartoons, and I can't recommend it highly enough. But you probably despised it with every fiber of your being.
I probably couldn't recommend it at all. I admire Mike Baron for staying on the title for so long, almost, 80 issues. He did that. He was doing this and Badger at the same time. Both went 80 and 60 issues. He's definitely one of the better writers we have in the business. And Steve Rude's art is good. It's different. It's definitely not run-of-the-mill.
Generally.
Or anybody. It's different than anybody. But for me, it's got a lot of that science fiction element, even though it tries to incorporate a superhero type of a thing. And I just didn't find it all that interesting. I read the origin issue first because I had no idea what Nexus was all about. And even then, I was kind of like bored. For me, it wasn't interesting enough. And it didn't mean that it had to have. I mean, I liked Phony Bone, so, I don't know. For me, it wasn't that interesting. I didn't find anything about the character. Well, some of the character itself, as far as the background, was interesting, but once he turned into the adult and what he was doing, I just didn't really like. So.
How stupefyingly typical. Up next, Canceled Classics, where I'll talk about a canceled classic, and then Trent will talk about a timely issue. I'd like to say a few words about Dynamo Joe from First Comics by Doug Rice and Phil Foglio. It's a new era, 1,000 years hence. Only 3 civilizations exist in this spiral arm of the galaxy. The Terran Confederation, governed from Earth, the cat-like Tavidians, and the splinter human master race of the Imperium. 10 years ago, this section of the galaxy fell under attack by the mysterious Millionaires, microscopic beings who form giant creatures which devour anything in their path, up to and including planets. They might have been ignored if the Earth wasn't lying directly in their flight path. To fight this new enemy, a new type of weapon and a new type of soldier has come about, the Robo-Soldier, 100-foot-tall robot, Dynamo class. The crew of one Robo-Soldier, Sergeant Daru of the Imperium and Private Pomru of the Tavidian Empire, are out to see the galaxy and fight evil. This is their story, and I think it's quite a good story. It's got an involved plot, good giant robots, and unique art that you won't see anyplace else. So pick up the 14 back issues today. Important question. Trent, what is a timely comic?
This is a predecessor to a Marvel comic. It's basically the same company.
So they're the people that did the World War II Submariner and Captain America and so forth?
Correct, but they're actually still the same character, as any Marvelite knows. If you read about Captain America, he's still bumfounded over the death of Bucky.
Only Bucky dies forever.
That's right. The Submariner is basically the same character. He's immortal, prince of the seas, and the Human Torch, as we all know, is Johnny Storm, and the android prior to.
Okay, so what are some timely titles?
Timelies were, say, Marvel Mystery. That was the primary book that launched off Marvel in general, which is why they are presently called Marvel Comics Group. The book originally was called Marvel Comics, and then with the second issue, they called it Marvel's Mystery Comics. And then you also have Captain America, of course, the Human Torch, Mystic, and some other oddball 6 or 7 issue run series stuff. You have the Young Allies, which is Bucky and the Torch's original assistant, Toro, who later comes back to battle the Submariner. And you also have Human Torch. What did I leave out? There's not many titles.
I think that pretty much covered it. So how much is Marvel Mystery or Marvel Comics #1 worth?
Oh, last I heard it was going for about $50,000 or $60,000 in top condition. But as far as I know, there are no real mint copies of that book in existence. About the highest grade would be a very fine.
So how many other Marvel Mystery or Marvel titles are around that are worth some money?
Oh, just about all of the timely line are worth quite a bit of money. One interesting fact is there's been a lot of interest in the 50s type.
Captain America Commie Smasher?
Yeah, exactly, where he was actually a teacher in a public school, and Bucky was a student, and they went out to fight crime.
And communists.
And communists, primarily communists. But anyway, it was interesting because when the present-day Marvel tells of this particular lapse of time, they cover it as this was not really Steve Rogers of Captain America.
Right, this was one of the alternate Captain Americas.
Correct, which I think they got involved with the trying to explain the Golden Age too much like DC did with the Crisis.
Yeah, so when did Timely switch over to Marvel?
Timely switched over to Marvel probably in the 60s. Late 60s, or no, early 60s, like 62 with Fantastic Four. Prior to this, they called themselves Atlas Comics, which I don't have too many examples, but this particular issue here is Atlas, and their little logo is right there. And they merged into Atlas in the 50s, probably about mid-50s they turned into Atlas and later became Marvel.
Okay, so what do you think is the most valuable timely comic that people could find lying around? Are there any since these date from World War II?
Oh, there's quite a few. The interesting thing is, like we were discussing earlier, the 50s books, they were often underrated. People would sell them for like $30 in near mint condition. And there are some fine examples of these books out there in real high grades. They did survive. A lot of people were more thrifty during the 50s. They held on to their books, stored them properly.
They didn't recycle them in World War II paper drives.
Correct. And but the only problem you will have with Atlas is they tend to have Marvel chipping. Everybody knows about Marvel chipping when the book starts to deteriorate here on the sides because of the poor paper stock. But there are quite a few fine examples, and here recently, to get back to your original question, these books have been soaring in price. Like some books that were bringing $30 just 2 and 3 years ago, now bringing $150, $200, and you can just about name your price.
So, as always, check your attic.
That's right.
Anything else you might have to add?
Nothing really to add, except one interesting thing that I've always liked about Timely's is a lot of their obscure characters like the Vision and Kazar and some of those guys we still have today, and there's been no explanation by Marvel as to what happened to them from the Golden Age to present.
Yes, but these are not the same Angel and Vision like there are the same Submariner and Cap, are they?
I don't know. If you got into the stories and read them, they're pretty darn close. The Vision is still a interdimensional being. He's not an android, but he still can do the same things that the Vision can do presently.
And I think they've done some old Avenger stories that dealt with some of these people in the Kree-Skrull War.
Oh, did they? I missed that particular run of books. But also one other thing was Roy Thomas, I think, is one of the...
He is kind of fond of these books.
Yes, you could say that. Because I think that the way he innovated his ideas with Kazar being from the Lost World as opposed to the jungle was very creative, because Tarzan's from the jungle, guys. Let's not...
Yes, let's avoid the lawsuits.
Exactly. So That's about all I had to say on timelies for now. I'd like to come back and talk about timelies again another date, though, because I think it's in-depth type of a thing.
Yeah,
I think
so-
a lot of people are interested in timelies.
What do you have to look for, or what do we have to look forward to from you in the future, Trent?
I'd like to do a segment on Captain America. I think he's the most asked about person around, and I didn't have no examples of Captain America comics to show tonight. So, also, though, next week, hopefully, we will have a Superman segment. We have a particular guy locally here in the valley who collects a lot of Superman artifacts and has some of the best examples of some of these items around in the country. And hopefully we'll get to do that.
Yeah, one thing that we had up on the screen was, I believe, a Marvel mystery comic, or
Correct.
Human Torch #2. What's the story on that?
Human Torch #2, as far as I know, is the first appearance of Captain America, which we couldn't seem to get a good enough shot of the inside front cover, but it says, coming soon, Captain America to smash the Nazis, etc., etc.
So it's just an ad and not an actual appearance then? Or
No.
would this count as an appearance?
I would say it would count as an appearance because it predates Captain America, which predates World War II, or us getting into the battle of World War II. Predates the bombing of Pearl Harbor by about 6 months.
So it looks like our patriotic comic companies were gearing up for the propaganda war.
Correct.
Well, thanks a lot, Trent.
All right, thank you, Dave.
See you soon.
All righty.
Okay, we've got some poll results for you now. The winning entry in our Name That Trading Card segment contest was Cardboard Heroes, so you can look forward to a segment by that title in the near future. And on our Valiant poll, it seems that 50% of you liked Magnus Robot Fighters your best, or as the best Valiant title, and 50% chose Eternal Warrior. So it was split down the middle with popular titles like Bloodshot and Hardcore losing out.
Yeah, surprising. Okay, the poll question this time will be, the first part is, do you read vertical titles?
DC's line of dark fantasy.
Right, we want to gauge what the response so far has been to those titles. So the first question is, do you read vertical titles? And secondly, if you do, which title is your favorite? So call 864-6861. The poll line will be open until 9 o'clock tonight, so please call.
And remember, as always, you will get some neat promotional item in
Right.
exchange for your information.
Right. And look for us next week when we'll present an all-interview show with Steve Purcell and Peter David, both from the San Diego Comic-Con last year. And then after that, as David said, we will move again. It's our 13-week slot is up. So we'll be moving to Fridays at 7 o'clock in the evening, which will be starting on March 26th. Again, we will be moving our time slot to Friday at 7 p.m. starting March 26th. So look for us on that date, and we'll see you then.
And always remember, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Good night.
You